One of the Batman HBO Max spin-off shows in motion is the series set around Colin Farrell's The Penguin, and just recently, we've had some news surrounding the filming and what it could be about. I haven't really talked about the spin-off shows much in my coverage of The Batman, and I thought that because of this recent news, it would be a good idea to discuss the details and my thoughts surrounding what the series could include. But before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content surrounding The Batman, its sequels, and the HBO Max spin-off shows, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into all the news and my thoughts on the Penguin spin-off show for The Batman. So it's clear that Warner Bros. Discovery is fully embracing the new on-screen Batman world. They recently greenlit a sequel to Matt Reeves' successful 2022 film, and they are going to be expanding even further with a HBO Max spin-off show starring Colin Farrell's Penguin, and even a Arkham Asylum show that's yet to be discussed more. But in regards to the Penguin series, some recent news has confirmed that they plan to begin filming the show on June the 15th this year via a recent production listing. This came from One Take News, who gave the date and also provided a synopsis for the yet-to-be filmed spin-off. The synopsis reads, "The Penguin is a spin-off of The Batman, described as a Scarface-like series about the rise of the Penguin character. It will show Penguin's rise to power over time, likely with an ending that leads right into the character we already saw on screen. The Penguin show will unsurprisingly follow Oswald Cobblepot, played by Colin Farrell, as he works his way up to presumably fill the newly created power vacuum at the top of Gotham City's underworld." What we also know is that the Batman director Matt Reeves will serve as an executive producer alongside Colin Farrell himself, and that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Chuck writer Lauren LaFranc will serve as the showrunner. In relation to the series, Colin Farrell said in an interview, "I couldn't be more excited about continuing this exploration of Oz as he rises through the darkened ranks to become the Penguin. Will be good to get him back on the streets of Gotham for a little madness and a little mayhem." Of course, the Batman movie showed us that the Penguin is a prime gangster in Gotham City who was only topped by Carmine Falcone while he was alive. But now that Falcone is dead and that the ending left for some villains to fill the void, Penguin is the #1 candidate for a power grab in Gotham City. And coming back to that synopsis, the particular timeline itself comes into question, and this is something that hasn't been previously revealed or spoken on. Based on the wording of it, there's a chance that the first season of the show could follow the events before the Batman movie. And because the Penguin is still being developed in the current timeline, I'd put my money on there being a lot taking place after the first film too. You could really see the growth of this character more deeply over time and really give the freedom to flesh out the iconic aspects of him. There's so much lore and references that can be introduced in the series too, and having more screen time with Farrell's villain instantly creates that opportunity. There was also a recent casting list that went out on 4chan surrounding Clayface being a potential character, but to be honest, I would take that with a grain of salt because it very well likely is fake. If this had more evidence behind it, I would believe it, but I'm sure we'll get more news on who is going to be a part of the show in the next few months. But before I get into the potential aspects and things that I would like to see in the Penguin spin-off show, when could it actually come out? Well, because this is set to start filming in June and the Batman 2 is currently in its early writing stages, I think it's likely that the Penguin will come out before the Batman 2 does. And like I said the other day, based on previous production schedules, the Batman sequel will most likely fall between 2024 and 2025, meaning that the Penguin could be looking at a 2023 release date. Especially when we consider that it's filming this summer, it is a high possibility. I don't know know what this means for the other HBO Max spin-off focused on Arkham Asylum, but that would be my guess for those two current projects. But either way, with the Penguin filming in just over a month, they've clearly made some huge progress with the series, and that makes a release date next year have the most ideal target. We'll have to see, but I'll keep you updated on everything surrounding its production and scheduled release date. So what could we expect to see in the Penguin series? Well, as briefly touched on before, we are likely going to see Oz's rise to power. The character wasn't always the gangster we know him to be, and I think with more screen time, we are going to see his journey over time in becoming the criminal he eventually molds into. The whole idea that this show might cover before and after the Batman is something that could integrally be linked to that, showcasing his journey from committed crimes under Falcone to eventually being the boss of them. It may be a show of positions, showing Oz rise up the ranks into the Penguin we know. And this would also call for the establishment of the Iceberg Lounge. In the comics, the Lounge is typically known and utilized as a base for his crimes, and showing the course in which he comes into his own would further help to convey the criminal growth of Penguin's character. We could see the origin tale of the Lounge for a flashback scene or episodes alongside the history of events that went down there to really show the importance of this landmark and what it means to Oz before he becomes the prime owner of it. And maybe they could even link this location to the war between Maroni and Falcone, making it a cornerstone in what would eventually be the stepping one for Penguin to be the new boss. I like this idea, and because the war was mentioned multiple times in the Batman, it definitely created an intrigue surrounding the history of these characters in Gotham City. And speaking of history, I think it's very likely we'll see the tragic backstory of the Penguin. Have you wondered how he got those face scars? Well, this could be an opportunity to see that play out, especially when we take a look at his sad backstory. Traditionally, this involved the villain being violently bullied, picked on for his stature, and given the name Penguin, which would also turn out to be his main drive. He becomes a criminal boss, bullies others, and owns the name he was given by his previous abusers, making for quite the reverse of outcomes, but one that's also quite understandable. Making this a core part of his motivation, again maybe through flashbacks, gives the Penguin character all the more depth he deserves. And could this even tie into the under-the-radar bullying scheme by Falcone? I mean, I know Penguin wanted to prove himself as the new leader and be a fearsome symbol, but his lash out against Falcone just as he was about to be killed in the film suggests to me that there was more pushing around than meets the eye. We'll have to see, but getting in deep with the history and character motivations is a great way to start his series. And this now leads me to the future of the Penguin show. Where could he go, and will he eventually don the famous umbrella and look we are used to seeing? Well, I think Reeves will want to keep this unique and still have a big essence of the character design we saw in the Batman. But at the same time, I also think that because the film was a year one story, there's plenty of visual, thematic, and storytelling changes to come as these aspects evolve over the years. In regards to the story, it's quite clear that the Penguin will seize power within Gotham's criminal ring, and his role for greed and extreme violence will make him one of the biggest threats going forward. That we do know. But what will he do next, and how does he get around the symbol of hope that has just come to the surface in Robert Pattinson's Batman? Well, he's going to have to install fear and a greater sense of security for his allies in his time as mob boss. Falcone thought he was invincible because of his power, but I think Penguin will be different in the sense that he has felt extreme loss in his past, and he seems more anxious than Falcone. So creating connections, building a stronger Iceberg Lounge, and making people in the city fear his reign will be a primary focus when it comes to keeping the Caped Crusader at bay. Like I was suggesting, he'll still be anxious of him, and it'll be interesting to see if the HBO Max series takes us down the path of Batman battling with the Penguin, but honestly, I think there's still a lot of time for growth before the Penguin can be the force that we know he can be. Whether that's showing this path in the events before the film, after, or even both is still a mystery, and overall, I'm just excited to see which direction they eventually go in. But that was my video discussing all the details for the Batman Penguin spin-off. There's so many possibilities surrounding which direction this show could take, and based on the brief examples I've listed, I think it has the potential to cover it all. Multi-season shows on multiple characters and factions in Matt Reeves' world could be the plan, and it opens up the opportunities for greater expansion. It's clear that with the 2 shows already announced that the filmmaker wants to do just that. Alongside a trilogy or even 5 Batman films, the shows can really enrich the long-form storytelling on show, yet the films themselves can also be their own thing and give us individual stories. This has been working for DC recently, and it did in The Batman 2, so it's a way to bring a different kind of growing universe on screen. But putting universes aside, at the end of the day, we all want great individual movies and TV shows that can lend themselves to revisits and long-term appreciation, rather than forgettable and repeating comic book projects that we see more than often. I can't wait to see what they do with the Penguin, and it's a chance to really build on the character introduced in the first film and set him up to be even more interesting come the next feature films. We'll have to see, but Warner Bros. Discovery are fully diving into the upcoming Matt Reeves related Batman projects, and I'm excited for all of it. But let me know down below in the comment section what you think towards the Penguin spin-off show for HBO Max, alongside what you would like to see featured. For much more videos and news on the Batman and its related projects, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.